That's the time when you hear women say, well, I want to get right with God. I want to get right with myself. I want to do things the right way. He's got to earn it this time. And I'm done being a prostitute, slut, whatever. I'm done with all that stuff. And now I want to fly straight, you know? And that's the point at which we're supposed to go, oh, she's completed her journey of self-discovery. And so therefore we have to forgive her. We have a forgive and forget. You know, we're going to extend some grace to her because she's extending grace to herself. And if you can't do that while she is doing that, well, that looks like the problem lies with you, mister. There's something wrong with you if you can't. And so the Lord has forgiven her. Why can't you? That's where you're going to hear this kind of language. Is right between 29 and 31 years old. This is when it's like, I'm not into the bad boys anymore. I was so crazy in my college years. I did so much stuff that's all on video now, and you know, in Cancun and the foam cannon party. But now that's not me anymore. That's not me. I'm gonna do things the right way. I want you to jump. You're gonna have to wait for this pussy, mister. All the guys that paid for this and all the video that's out there. No. I'm giving myself grace, and so therefore I have more value. I have more value than I did back then. The problem with that is this is kind of like I've described it this way: is that when a woman gets to be into the epiphany phase, it's like her. If you think of like the three parts of personality, like a very Freudian, I understand. Maybe this is not the best illustration, but if you look at like the id, the ego, and the superego, right? The id really, really, really wants to. I want hot guys. I really want to have fun. It's like a hedonistic aspect. It's like I really want to go out there. It's so exciting. I want to get with, what the guy from 50 Shades of Grey. I need to get with the hot guy in the foam cannon party. I want to get with Jason Momoa. Blah blah blah. And then there's the ego. And the ego says to the id, well, you know what? We're 29 right now, and we can't really do what we used to do. We can't really, we got to think of our future because we're not as hot as we used to be. And we're kind of hitting the wall, but not hitting the wall. We're just, but we can see it. It's coming up. And we really have to plan ahead. We really have to start thinking in terms of long-term security because maybe we don't have enough money, or maybe it's just emotional. Maybe we just want a guy who's going to be around. I don't know, but we need to get responsible. And the id goes, no. We want to have fun. Fun. We want to get back to where we were before. Trader, thank you for your support, my friend. Trader SE, one of my good friends from the crypto sphere, just so y'all know. But it's like there's this conflict. It's almost like there's two personalities fighting with one another. It's the one that wants to do the right thing. It's the ego. It's the one that really wants to fly straight, or it's trying to think in terms of of the future. And it's like we're not going to be as hot as when we hit 33, we're not going to be as hot as we were when we were 23. And the id's like, no, I want somebody fun and hot and exciting. And he's got to really rock my world and lay pipe like nobody's business, right? But then the ego goes, no. This conversation that you're listening to right now is that conflict. Now, they're both having they're having a common conversation, but the rationalization that goes along with the epiphany phase, everything that's in this conversation, that's why I wanted to touch on this today. Everything in this conversation is that conflict between separating themselves from the 18 to 28 demographic and transitioning, that's why I call it the transition phase, into the 29, 30, 31-year-old phase. And that's very, for women in particular, that's very, very, it's a vital stage. Now, why do I say that? Well, because if you go and you look at, let me go throw this one on here for you real quick. If you look at my infamous sexual market value graph here, produced in 2014, by the way, you can see here, right around the 30-year mark for both men and women. Now, I want you to pay attention to the pink side of this. Now, the men's side is also very important, but on the pink side here, when women are on that decline, when they hit about 23 years old at their sexual market value peak, and again, this is confirmed by research. This is confirmed by stats from OkCupid, from dating stats. I'll tell you what's funny is I used to get run up the flagpole for this, not anymore. Because there's been so much research and so much statistical reinforcement for this that I'm actually kind of almost it's all spooky to me how accurate it was when I produced this. But when you look at this and that woman is now at 30 some odd years old, she's got to look ahead for her own security. But you also understand that the average age of first marriage is when right around 28, 29 for women right now. For men, it's about 2 years more. It's like about 30, maybe 31 now in the United States. But that's there. It's no coincidence that the average age of first marriage picks up right around the epiphany and the transition phase. Convenient, isn't it? Right? Well, that's when we've got to fly straight, and that's when we're looking for a guy. It's cads versus dads. The exciting guy that those guys, the high value guys that they got with in their past or whatever, the agency, the power, the popularity, the notoriety, the attention, the affirmation that came from being 23, and then on top of that, you invest your ego into that, and you invest your revenue into that. And you invest your popularity, your notoriety. She's talking about, like, later on, she talks about how she only goes on TikTok when she's depressed, which is very interesting. But right around 29 years old, 28, 29 is when the panic sets in. And that's why Tomi Lahren had her moment when she was 28 years old in August of 2020. And you can go back and if you know what, I'll link it in this later on. You can go back and have a look at that and compare and contrast Tomi Lahren to Mia Khalifa, to maybe somebody that you know, maybe a woman that you know between the ages of 29 and 31 years old. And that's a really tough time because it's like they understand that the party's almost over. The lights are going to come on at the club and they got to leave with the guy. They got to get out of the club. And the club being the sexual marketplace in this allegory that I'm never supposed to use. But this is the language. This is what you will hear from women in this demographic. And so, yeah, so then it's like, well, I would never tell my 21-year-old self to do that. Of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't. Because you're like, oh, it's the wisdom of whores, right? It's like, I understand things now. I've completed my journey of self-discovery. I'm a different person. I want somebody who's going to respect me for me being me. And the problem is, and you've heard me say this on several occasions, is that, and Myron will probably say exactly the same thing here in a little while, but women tend to conflate their personal worth with their sexual market value. I've used this countless times on Fresh and Fit. I've put it in at least 3 different books that I can think of. Certainly, and I know I put this in religion. I'm pretty sure I put it in preventive medicine. I think I think in one chapter in the Player's Handbook, I also referred to this. But during this time, this is when urgency is like, sexual urgency is like the cards are down, the chips are down. If you get past this, or if there's some sort of comforting fiction that helps get that woman over the hump of being like 28, 29, 30, or 29, 30, 31, that's a real dangerous time, because this is when women want to consolidate. This is when guys are supposed to be dumb and blue-pilled. This is when guys who are just hitting 30, they haven't quite hit their stride into their sexual market value peak, but they are possibly going to be winners that are going to cross the finish line, as per Rich Cooper. And they are hoping that those guys will be there. These are the guys that, Sheryl Sandberg always says, like, nothing sexier over time. They're supposed to be waiting for her at 30. And more, they're not waiting for them. And so they get to this point right here and they have conversations just like this.